The restaurant buzzed with evening conversations and clinking glasses. In the corner booth, 3 coworkers huddled together, smartphones in hand, barely containing their laughter. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a cruel smirk on his face. I can't believe she actually showed up. Beside him, Nina scrolled through her phone. Of course she did. Emma's too naive to realize this whole thing is a setup. The third, Derek, shook his head with mock sympathy. Poor thing probably thinks someone actually wants to date her. They had spent 2 weeks planning this. Emma Rodriguez worked in their accounting department, a quiet woman in her late 20s who communicated through sign language and written notes. She kept to herself, ate lunch alone, and never joined the office happy hours. To them, she was an easy target. The plan was simple. Create a fake dating profile, match with Emma, convince her to come to this upscale restaurant, and then ghost her. They would watch from across the room as she waited alone, film her disappointment, and share it around the office on Monday. What they didn't know was that the man they had impersonated online was real. Across the restaurant, at a table near the window, sat Alexander Hunt. At 42, he was the CEO of Hunt Industries, a self-made billionaire who had built his empire from nothing. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples. His navy suit was perfectly tailored, but his eyes carried a weariness that money couldn't ease. Beside him sat his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. She was drawing on a napkin, her small hands moving quickly as she created a picture of a butterfly. Alexander watched her with the devotion only a single father could understand. 3 years ago, his wife had left them both, deciding that family life wasn't what she wanted. Since then, it had been just the 2 of them. Sophie looked up at him and signed, "Daddy, I'm hungry." Alexander signed back, "I know, sweetheart. The waiter will be here soon." Yes, Sophie was deaf, born that way. And Alexander had learned sign language before she was even a year old, determined that nothing would create a barrier between them. He glanced around the restaurant, taking in the comfortable atmosphere. This was one of their favorite places, a weekly tradition they both treasured. That's when he noticed her. A young woman sat alone at a table in the center of the room. She wore a deep red dress that complemented her blonde hair. She kept checking her phone, then looking toward the entrance with hopeful eyes. Every few minutes she would smooth down her dress or adjust her hair. Alexander recognized that look. He had seen it before, years ago, on his own face. The vulnerability of someone taking a chance on connection. Then he noticed something else. The woman's hands moved briefly, a nervous gesture, but one he recognized immediately. She was signing to herself, a self-soothing habit many deaf people had. His attention shifted to the corner booth. 3 people were staring at the woman in red, laughing behind their hands, their phones pointed in her direction. Alexander's jaw tightened. He had built his success on reading people, on understanding situations others missed. And he understood this one perfectly. Sophie tugged on his sleeve. She signed, "What's wrong?" He signed back, "I need to do something, stay here for just a moment." Alexander stood and walked directly to the woman's table. As he approached, she looked up, her gray eyes startled. He smiled gently and signed, "Hello, are you waiting for someone?" Her eyes widened in surprise. Then she signed back, "Yes, a blind date, but I think maybe he's not coming. May I sit down?" She hesitated, then nodded. Alexander took the seat across from her. "My name is Alexander, and I believe I owe you an apology." She looked confused. Her hands moved gracefully as she signed. "I don't understand." He pulled out his phone and opened a dating app, the same one the pranksters had used. His assistant had mentioned receiving strange messages from his account weeks ago, messages he had never sent. Someone had hacked his profile. He showed her the screen. "Someone has been using my account without permission. I think they were using it to set you up for some kind of cruel joke." Emma's face fell. Her hands dropped to her lap. The hope in her eyes dimmed, replaced by a familiar pain. "I'm sorry," Alexander signed. "People can be thoughtless and cruel." Emma took a deep breath and signed back, "It's not your fault. I should have known better." "Known what better?" "That someone like me doesn't get real chances. I'm Emma, by the way." Alexander felt his heart constrict. He knew that feeling of being dismissed, of being seen as less than. Before his success, he had been just another poor kid from the wrong side of town, someone people looked past. From the corner booth, Marcus nudged Nina. "Who's that guy? He's ruining everything." Derek squinted. "I don't know, but he's talking to her. Or whatever they're doing with their hands." They watched in growing frustration as Alexander and Emma continued their conversation in sign language. Alexander signed to Emma, "Would you like to have dinner with me? A real dinner, not as part of anyone's joke. My daughter Sophie is here too. She would love to meet you." Emma's eyes glistened. "You don't have to do that out of pity. It's not pity. It's recognition. You took a chance tonight, even though taking chances is scary. That takes courage, and honestly, it would mean a lot to Sophie. She doesn't meet many people who sign." Emma looked past him to where Sophie sat, the little girl now watching them with curious eyes. Emma's expression softened. "Okay, she signed. I would like that." Alexander stood and offered his hand. Emma took it and followed him to his table. Sophie's face lit up when she saw Emma signing. "Sophie, this is Emma. Emma, my daughter Sophie." Sophie immediately signed, "I love your dress. Red is my favorite color." Emma smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her entire face. She signed back, "Thank you. I love your butterfly drawing." In the corner booth, the three co-workers sat in stunned silence as their victim was welcomed into what was clearly a happy family dinner. Their phones hung forgotten in their hands. "This isn't how this was supposed to go," Nina whispered. Over the next hour, Alexander, Sophie, and Emma shared a meal together. They talked about everything and nothing. Emma learned that Alexander's company worked with sustainable technology. Alexander learned that Emma was an accountant who loved classical music. Sophie learned that Emma had a cat named Beethoven. But more than that, they connected. Three people who understood what it meant to be different, to be underestimated, to be stronger than the world gave them credit for. As dessert arrived, Alexander excused himself. He stood and walked directly to the corner booth where the three co-workers sat. Marcus looked up, his smugness evaporating when he saw the cold fury in Alexander's eyes. "I know what you did," Alexander said quietly, his voice like steel. "I know you set her up as some kind of joke." Derek started to protest, but Alexander held up his hand. "I don't want to hear excuses. What you did was cruel and small. You saw someone different from you and decided that made her fair game for your entertainment." Nina's face had gone pale. "We were just what? Just having fun? Just killing time?" Alexander leaned down, his voice dropping even lower. "Let me tell you something about Emma. In the last hour, I've learned more about dignity and grace from her than you three will probably learn in your entire lives." He straightened up. "You wanted to make her feel small. Instead, you've shown exactly how small you are." Alexander returned to his table, leaving three silent, shame-faced people behind him. As the evening wound down, Alexander walked Emma to her. Sophie held Emma's hand, chattering away in sign language about her school and her friends. At Emma's car, Alexander signed, "I would like to see you again, if you're interested." Emma signed back, "Are you sure? You're being kind, but you don't have to." "Emma," he interrupted gently, "I'm a businessman. I don't waste time on things I don't want, and I want to know you better. So does Sophie." The little girl nodded enthusiastically, signing, "Please say yes." Emma laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Yes," she signed. "I would like that very much." They exchanged real numbers this time. As Emma drove away, Alexander felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not for business success or financial gain, but for something more important. Connection. Sophie tugged on his hand and signed, "I like her, Daddy. She's nice." "So do I, sweetheart. So do I." Monday morning arrived. Marcus, Nina, and Derek walked into their office building with heavy steps. They had spent the weekend in dread, wondering if there would be consequences for their actions. There were. A memo waited on each of their desks. Their company had been acquired over the weekend by Hunt Industries. Effective immediately, they were required to complete a comprehensive workplace ethics training program. Failure to complete it would result in termination. The memo was signed by Alexander Hunt, CEO. In the accounting department, Emma sat at her desk, a small smile on her face. On her computer screen was a message from Alexander asking if she and Beethoven would like to join him and Sophie for brunch on Sunday. She typed back a single word, yes. Sometimes the cruelest jokes have the most unexpected endings. Sometimes the people we underestimate are exactly the ones who teach us the most important lessons. And sometimes, in the middle of someone else's meanness, we find connections that change everything. Emma had walked into that restaurant expecting rejection. Instead, she found a family. Alexander had gone to dinner expecting just another quiet evening with his daughter. Instead, he found someone who understood what it meant to communicate beyond words. And 3 coworkers learned that the universe has a way of evening the scales, especially when you try to make a joke out of someone's dignity. If this story reminded you that kindness always wins in the end, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Subscribe for more stories about real strength, unexpected connections, and the beautiful ways life surprises us. And please leave a comment sharing your own story of a time when kindness appeared when you needed it most. Your story matters.